Hello everyone, welcome to my class today. Today we will see the continuation of research approach and design classes, that is quantitative research approach. So under quantitative research approach, today we will be dealing with the pre-experimental research design. So all the components of research approach, that is qualitative, quantitative and mixed approach. So qualitative approach classes have been already dealt in the previous video. Their link will be given in the description box, so please look into it. So today we'll start with the quantitative research approach. Okay, coming to experimental research, so it is a scientific approach. Scientific means there is a rationale or a proven theory, so it is called scientific approach. Here there are two variables. One is independent variable. Independent means which we can be manipulated. Okay, that means we do some experiment or we do some interventions on this independent variable, and then we apply to the dependent variable. Apply to dependent is the samples or the person on which we are finding the effect of the manipulation. Okay, that means the independent variable what we are doing, so we find an effect on the dependent variable. So the effect of the dependent, that is the independent variable, is causing the effect on the dependent variable, that we have to measure and analyze using statistical method. That is, we use statistical formula, so that there will be a result is coming. Okay, so result we will, from the result we will draw the conclusion that whether there is relationship between the independent and dependent variable or not. Okay, so using statistical formula we find that, and based on that you will be generalizing the findings of study. Generalizing is nothing but we will apply the results in the population. So before going to the experimental research, we have to understand certain terms. That is, first, next is variables. Variables is anything that vary. Okay, so that means which can change, or any behavior or anything which can change is called as variable. So like examples are weight, anxiety, income, body temperature. So these are all certain things that can change. Okay, so when some concept changes, then it is called as the variable. So so in variables there are again so many types of variable are there. So they mainly used in the experimental research are independent, dependent and the extraneous variable. Okay, so independent variable means that will cause or it produces an action that will influence the dependent variable. Okay, so independent is nothing but we do some experiment or treatment on a person, and that will cause effect on the samples. Okay, so independent is the cause, okay, and dependent is the effect. Okay, so when something we take to influence the dependent on the dependent variable, the effect will be produced, like any change in behavior or change in the characteristics or any outcome what the researcher wanted to find by doing the study, that is called as the dependent variable. Okay, so every time independent is the cause relationship and dependent variable is the effect relationship. And extraneous variable is certain times when we do the research properly, also some environmental temperatures or humidity or something, which some variables which cannot be fully controlled, and these are some external factors that can influence the study. They are called as extraneous variables. Coming to the characteristics of experimental design. So in experimental design, there are mainly three characteristics. One is manipulation or the treatment or experiment whatever we do, and we find out whether that treatment or experiment has some effect. Okay, for example, in the market we find a new drug for cancer. Okay, so then this cancer we apply, this cancer drug we give it to the patient, that is called as the treatment. Okay, so our manipulation means something we do in order to find the effect, that is called as manipulation. Okay, so it is some process or anything we apply on the participant, and then we will see the researcher will see whether there is some effect because of the treatment that is given, that is called as manipulation. And second one is control. Okay, so control is sometimes even without the cancer drug. Okay, for example, as I said, cancer drug, even without the cancer drug, the patient would have progressed by some internal factors or internal characteristics of the patient itself would have treated the cancer. Okay, so we must know whether the cancer drug only has got the treatment, to the patient, or even without this cancer drug can the treatment be given. Okay, so that is patient own internal factors are influencing the treatment or not. Okay, so to identify that we must have a control group. Okay, so control group means on this group we do not do any experiment. Okay, so when we do a study, we take two groups. One group will be experimental group, on the group which we will do the experiment, that is giving the drug or something, and another group will be there. So for on this group we will not give the experiment, we will only find the result by doing the test, that is by administering test, then that is called as control. Okay, so control is nothing but a comparison group which is kept in order to identify whether the experiment only had got some effect or even without the experiment or even without the drug the patient has progressed from the disease. Okay, so like that, to identify that we will have a control group. Next is randomization. Okay, so randomization is random assignment. Okay, so for whenever we are selecting the samples for the research, okay, samples is people or any participant who wanted to participate in the research. Okay, whenever we are selecting the samples, we must not choose the sample. Okay, that is in experimental study. Like if the study is having randomization, that means the samples must, there is a chance for the samples to come for the study, but it is not a choice. Okay, so randomization is like either randomly we select the samples. For example, if there is 1,000 person in a community with particular disease and we wanted to do a study on the disease, so but we need only 100 samples, so we should not choose by our own interest, we cannot take the samples. Okay, so we must have some there are so many sampling methods are there, so we have to follow certain methods, like every 10th person who is coming to the hospital I will take study, so it is not by choice, that is called as randomization. Okay, so that we can prevent bias. Bias is, so if our own interest, if you choose the sample, then there can be bias. Okay, some like maybe we think that this person may progress, so we can select by our own thinking, so the study may contain the error. There are other types of experimental research design also, like pre-experimental, quasi-experimental and true experimental. So in pre-experimental research design, here there will be experiment done, that is the manipulation will be there, but this design does not need a randomization or a control. Okay, so when we don't have adequate samples to have a control or to randomize, that means if all the samples in that group we want to select and do the study, then we do a pre-experimental design. Okay, so in pre-experimental design there is no need for control nor a randomization, so but it need a manipulation or the experiment. Okay, and number 2 is quasi-experimental design. So in quasi-experimental design is used, so it is also called partial, half or pseudo, okay, or false. Okay, so like half of the experimental design will be there in the quasi-experimental design. So here there must be compulsory an experiment, that is manipulation should be there, and there should be a control group, but it is not necessary to have a randomization. Okay, so in case like related to educational studies, okay, so if we want to do a study in a college of like on a third year person, okay, and in a third year only 60 or 70 people will be there, okay, and we want to do study on the whole class. Okay, so now we should not leave, we don't want to leave anyone in the class, but we want all the participants to participate in the class. That time we don't do randomization, we select all the samples. Okay, so like in areas where the samples are less, we want all the samples to participate in the study, then we don't follow randomization. So those studies which do not have randomization but they have a control and manipulation, they are called as quasi experimental design. Okay, and last is the true experimental research design. So as the name true they must contain all the three characteristics of experimental research design, which I already told. That is, there will be a manipulation and there will be a control group, and the samples are selected randomly. Okay, so the samples, they will be randomly selected. So then it is called as true experimental study. So in true experimental, we have a hypothesis, like there must be a cause effect relationship. So we approve or disapprove the hypothesis by finding the result and generalizing the study. That is called as true experimental research design. Okay, so in today's class I will deal only about the pre-experimental design. So in further videos I will be telling about the quasi and the true experimental design. Okay, so coming to pre-experimental research design, so there are mainly three types: one shot case study design, one group pre-test post-test design, and static group designs. Okay, one shot case study design. Okay, so one shot, okay, at a shot, according to the name. So here we select a group of samples. Okay, so maybe like our own choice, we can select a group of samples and we go and administer the question, that is treatment. Okay, so we do some procedure or any manipulation we do on a sample, like 50 participants we select, and all the 50 participants we do some treatment, and later after some time we check, we do a test and identify whether the treatment has got some effect on the samples. That is called as one shot case study. So one shot we collect the samples, we do some treatment, and then we find whether the treatment has some effect or not. And next is one group pre-test post-test design. Okay, so here we select one group of samples, that is only one single group will be there. So pre-test means before giving any treatment we have to do a pre-test. Okay, so pre-test is like, so that we will be able to compare and see before how was the treatment and later after the treatment how was the results. Okay, so sometimes even as I said, so in pre-test, like for example, I want to know related to knowledge about some hypertension. Okay, so if I just give the knowledge, okay, if I educate the samples and then like in one shot study, if I do a post test, sometimes patient already would have known about the hypertension. Okay, so it is not that our teaching had given, our teaching only had got good knowledge in the person. Okay, so that in pre-test we have to administer the questionnaire and get information, that is previous knowledge, so that we will get the pre-test results, and then to all the samples we do the treatment, that is we teach the person, and later in the post-test we will get the information, that is we will get the test, so that we can compare and see. In pre-test it's a without teaching, only the patient is having knowledge, or only because of the teaching the patient knowledge is he is having good knowledge or poor knowledge. Okay, so to identify that we do a one group pre-test post-test design. Okay, next is static group comparison design. So here we select two or more groups. So in only one group we give experiment. Okay, so other groups we will keep as observation group. Observation group is, they have already, like for example, if there is a cyclone hit area. Okay, so all the persons would have experienced the cyclone in that area. Okay, so we have to divide them into groups, and one group we will only observe, and to other group we have to give some psychotherapy or something. Okay, some other some manipulation will be given, and then in post test, that is after sometimes we have to see all the three groups. Okay, so how many ever group we have selected, to all the groups we have to see the post test. Okay, like we can check the level of anxiety, so that we can identify that as time passes the person's psychological fear etc. is gone, or only because of the psychotherapy what we have given, the person is going for, the person is psychologically stable. Okay, so like this you can identify the comparison between the experiment and the person who are not given experiment, but they have already observe some incident. Okay, so like that we have to check, that is called a static group comparison design. Okay, so as the name static, the other group will be a static, only one group we will be giving experiment, and then we are doing a post test, that is called a static group comparison design. Okay, so these three designs are there in pre-experimental design. Okay, coming to advantages of pre-experimental research design. So it is easy to administer because we don't need to have any control group, or we don't want to select sample by randomization. So we can just go and get the samples and directly do the experiment and then find the results of the experiment. So it is easy to administer, and it is cost effective method also. So again, here we need not collect so many samples, we need not have more control group and other things, so it is very cost effective. And here there can be comparison between the groups, like observational groups and experimental groups can be elicited. Okay, so for example, a particular incident when a person is experiencing by himself, or by the teaching what we are giving only by our therapy only, is there is any changes, those comparison we can do in the pre-experimental design. And also like case study, one shot case study designs will explore the real situation of the person. Okay, because we are not giving pre-test, or we just go and collect the information, so we can real situation of that area, what the people are doing, that you can collect. So these are the advantages or benefit of pre-experimental design. Coming to the disadvantages of pre-experimental research design, the main thing is it lacks internal validity. So that means because there is no control group, we cannot see that the change which is occurring in the person is only by our treatment, or it is by the person's own personality or personal behavior. There is change you cannot identify. And also, even if there is a static design where you have 2-3 groups, even then you cannot properly prove the hypothesis, because we don't know the groups whether they have already have the same behavior, or that is the person on whom we are giving treatment and the other observing group, whether they have the same behavior. Those things we cannot clearly identify. So this pre-experimental group doesn't have internal validity, so there can be a chance of bias. Okay, so this is about pre-experimental research design. So in further classes we will see about quasi and the true experimental design detailedly. I hope you have understood my class. Please stay tuned. Please like, share, subscribe, and also click the notification button. Thank you.